Today we do a piece by Sergei Prokofiev, who is a 20th century composer. Um, and so the pieces I'm going to do is from a collection called Vision Fugitives. These are a collection of 20 pieces he composed somewhere between 1915 and 1917, which was significant because it was just before the Russian Revolution. And so the pieces, to one degree or another, derive from that event, which was imminent and happening, and he was there at that time, sort of just before the shooting started, so to speak. But there also were, according to him, were inspirations of people he knew, places he'd been, so the inspirations were varied. It wasn't just about that particular event or what preceded it. But some of them were, according to him, derived from some events that happened around that time. The pieces themselves are short, sort of like preludes of Chopin in that sense. But they're short pieces that he was really experimenting with modern techniques. But modern techniques also, in his case, he was one who incorporated old with new. So he would be exploring new techniques, but also incorporating old techniques. So the styles vary from things that would seem to be of the past in some sense, other older forms, but then also you contrast those with other of the collection that were very new and very different sounding. So he definitely was a modern composer of the 20th century. So in that sense, his pieces were always sort of fresh sounding, even if he was incorporating things from the past. He had something called a classical symphony, in which he composed a symphony in the style of, older masters, but from a 20th century perspective. And so he gave it a fresh spin. And then other things he did were quite, different, quite apart from older forms. In this particular case, like I said, these were experiments of his, so everything is a little bit different depending on the piece you pick. I'm picking number one because that's the one I can probably play, probably. Maybe not so well, but well enough at least to be sort of presentable. But they can be rather difficult, the pieces. And it's worth knowing that he himself as a pianist, had a fabulous technique. He was not known as a performer, but you can hear him play. You can hear him play his own pieces. In fact, these particular pieces, he plays a few from this collection in a recording that was recorded at Abbey Road Studios. Yes, Abbey Road Studios, back in the 1930s. It does go back that far. But he recorded them there. And you can hear him play. And if you do, you should. If you have a chance, you should, because it's a really, I don't know how to put it, it's a mesmerizing performance, really. It's not showy, and he wasn't a showman performer or virtuoso performer, but his level of control in terms of his ability to make notes be what they want, what he obviously wanted them to be, because he's playing his own pieces, was really pretty astonishing, really. I mean, when you hear it. He's one of those players that he plays it and you don't realize how difficult it is what he's doing until, as a player, you try to sit down and play it and you realize, wow, how did he do that? That's really hard, really difficult. So it's worth a listen. It's really an amazing performance. You should listen to it if you can. Beyond that, the man himself was a child prodigy. Wrote his first piece at the piano at the age of 5. His first opera at the age of 9. So he was indeed a child prodigy in that sense. He was highly intelligent, by different turns, different accounts, eccentric or arrogant, not necessarily forgiving. Very unsentimental, unromantic, coming into the 20th century from the 19th century. He was definitely of the 20th century, not looking backwards in that sense. He was a very unsentimental man, apparently. Passionate chess player, highly intelligent, actually beat a world chess champion at one point. So he was a formidable figure in some ways within the musical world, because just the kind of person he was and his intellect. But as I said, this particular piece is number one from the collection of Vision Fugitive from 1915, between 1915 and 1917 by Sergei Prokofiev.